The common man on the street, when they hear homophobia, it's a flinch word. When they hear that, they go, because it's a word like racist. It's a word that means strong dislike or fear of gay people. And the idea that I, strongly dislike or fear some of my very good friends, because I have a view about marriage, which, is that kids need a mum and a dad.
But you would discriminate against them in terms of their right to get married, yes?
Well, but let's put it this way. One of my friends, a guy called Darren Mahan, he went on the Late Late Show. He's a gay man who opposes gay marriage, right? He went on and he said, he was coming from more or less the place I was, that, kids have a mother and father, social policy should favour that men and women bring different things to marriage and to child rearing. Now, he got dog's abuse. People were coming at him saying he was a self-hating religious fundamentalist, saying he was a traitor and Uncle Tom, and just unbelievable stuff, which was just, slurs and awful stuff about his sexual orientation. So my question is, if we go with this frame, if we go with the frame that homophobia is such a broad term that it encompasses my friend Darren, then my friend Darren is the homophobe, and the people criticising him, maybe they were too harsh, but they're basically right. Really, it's him who hates himself. He hates and fears himself and other people. Now, is that the kind of civilised debate we want to have? Is that the kind of country we want to live in? It sure as hell isn't the kind of country I want to live in.
Okay, fair enough. No, I see Keith is nodding along next to you, because Keith, you are against gay marriage, yes?
Yes.
And you are a gay man.
Yes.
So
I'm wondering if I should state my opinion, but mind you, having said that, I've already seen on Facebook and on Twitter the reaction when you actually come out as a gay man and say, I don't believe in same-sex marriage.
Are you accused of being homophobic?
I'm accused of being both homophobic, and the latest buzz phrase around the place is a self-hating gay. Now, my friends may have some opinions on me, but self-hating wouldn't be the list of things that they would call me. And it's an attempt, and I'd noticed this, and what I would say is it's an attempt to dismiss the opposition by pigeonholing him. So you define anybody who stands up against it, they're all either bigots, or they're self-hating gays, or they're religious fundamentalists, or they're homophobic. So therefore, there's nobody with a reasonable viewpoint against gay marriage, because it's all good and it's all happy. And who cares about the traditional values of marriage, because everybody else they really shouldn't have their opinions counted.
Okay, Una, you are a lesbian, you live in London, and you spend a bit of time back in Dublin and everything. Do you find Ireland to be quite a homophobic society?
Well, my experience is, I've been very lucky. I haven't been subject to any sort of homophobic abuse. However, it is there. I grew up, like many Irish people, I grew up in a Catholic household. I have very loving, accepting parents who would both consider themselves to be gay allies, to be pro-marriage equality. And I think what's happening in this debate where, we have polls that say that the majority of Irish people are for marriage equality, for same-sex marriage. And yet shutting down the discourse and saying that certain words can't be used and can't be applied to parties that we can't even name this evening means that actually what's happening is we're naturalising and normalising and neutralising the campaign of intolerance that they are engaged in. And so what happens is every time language is used to describe the institution of marriage, where a man and a woman are married to one another, and that is normal and natural and traditional and part of social order, my life and my behaviours and the things that I want for my future are made to be abnormal, unnatural, and somehow a threat to social order.
Okay, so you think the way we frame all this actually, it frames you as being disordered, basically, or something?
Well, essentially, what you create is a culture where, whether you can define that as homophobia or homophobic, what it creates is a system where we are being conditioned, we're being socially conditioned in such a subtle and insidious way, we can't even name it. We can't even talk about it. And so to call it out means that somehow you're being hysterical or you're being pedantic.
Okay, sorry, Ben, can I just, Ben, sorry, you had your speak, and we're against time pressure. I think it's important, Ben, to talk to Buzz, because Buzz O'Neill, you basically have experienced what everybody, no matter what their definition, would agree was homophobia. Just tell us briefly about your experience.
Yeah, well, it's just, we're talking about the definition of the word homophobia and who gets to use it. It doesn't matter. What was used against me was homophobic violence. I was coming out to George last April, and 4 guys start shouting queer and faggot at me. One of them got out the other side, one got out one side, punched me to the ground, spat at me, called me a queer again, got back in the taxi and drove away. Now, only that the doorman from the George jumped in to chase them away. I probably might have suffered a little bit more than a bruised ego and a black eye, you know? And it's really annoying to you know, the freedom of speech angle and the freedom of expression and the other side of the debate, let's call it that, have had free rein in the Irish media for, from I can see, decades now, to write whatever they want about us. And we've had no recourse.
So you feel
Well,
that, do you feel that the gay community is quite silenced?
Yeah, absolutely, of course we are. And the nerve of them to come out this week and try and say that we're trying to silence the debate when they're firing around solicitors' letters.
Can I ask you a question though, Buzz?
You know?
Like, if what you experienced was real homophobia, everyone would agree,
Sure.
right? And it was the really dark edge of it. Does that not make you think then that what we're talking about stuff like a little bit of discrimination at institutional level and calling that homophobia is kind of not really fair?
But there's a trickle-down effect, you know? If these people have, from what I can see, just incredible access to the Irish media, okay? And we're talking about both sides of the debate, and it's going to be going on for the next 15 months or however long it takes. You know, we're here tonight to say enough is enough. That's it. We're not going to take your crap anymore. I'm not going to get the shit kicked out of me on the street of Dublin because of what somebody said in a certain newspaper or on a TV show.
And you think what is said at that level actually gives a mandate in some way to the people who beat you up?
It absolutely does. You know, and I just want to say one last thing.
You allow the guest to call the gay
We're not going to get into that right now.
We're not flaming queens.
Anyone for any reason advocates violence against gay people, that's out of order and it should be stopped. Everyone should agree on that. The simple point is, are people entitled to their good names? And I think they are. You know?
There's no question of that, and their good names
whether we're throwing out anti-gay slurs or calling people homophobes.
Were vindicated, and that's been
Arguments
settled.
in, insults out, I guess. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
Arguments in, insults out.
guys, arguments in insults out is that?
I think that's a very good position.
So should we decide then, Colm, that in order to go on with this debate for the next year and a half, should we decide that we would all agree, in the interest of civilization, to leave the word homophobia out of it?
Not at all.
No.
How could you ever leave? Let's leave the word discrimination out of it then. Let's leave the word equality out of it. Let's leave the word... You know, if we can't begin to... You know, I mean, you talk about the kind of stuff that's happened on Twitter. If we're going to allow those who want to manage this debate so that they don't get called out on their prejudice based on the action of a number of internet trolls and hateful people who throw crap out regularly, and it goes to both sides. I mean, I can show you the letters I've gotten over the last 10 years. Pity the child being raised by 2 queers being sent to my house. I can tell you about the death threats that I've received. That's irrelevant. People act appallingly as a part of public discourse. Okay, but to name prejudice has to be part of what we have to be able to do in this debate.
To equate prejudice and discrimination with homophobia, I think it's going to be the difficulty in this debate. I have no hesitation calling what Buzz has just described as homophobia, and I've seen worse appalling stuff described and happened in the courts. All 4 of us, everybody in this debate, would describe what's happening in schools as wrong, as discrimination and prejudice, and something that should be no.
You wouldn't describe it as homophobia.
I would describe it as prejudice and discrimination on the basis of gay.
Even if the only reason that person is being bullied is because they're gay.
This is not going to be a debate.
This is not
going to be a debate between gay rights activists and the Iona Institute. This is ultimately going to be a general public debate that the public will want to tune into and think they can hear and listen and hear nobody shouted down or disabused.
I think we've made that point effectively. Susan, the final word to you.
We just want a polite debate. We have to discuss society. We have to discuss children. Don't let's shout and roar and scream. Let me come on a show if I have to. It's only my opinion. Let me have it.
And let other people call her out on that opinion. And expose
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a big thank you to Colm O'Gorman, Senator Abel Power, Noel Whelan and Susan Phillips, and thanks to our audience members as well. I'm sorry to all of you, we didn't have more time for that. Maybe, I'm sure, no doubt, we will return to all this a lot over the next while.